The signal from nowhere. The stars were quiet, cold, empty, just the way Eli Vance liked it. He was alone in his small ship, the Star Whisperer, flying near the edge of a forgotten star system. Nothing should be here. No planets, no life, no signals. But then, he heard something. It was soft at first, a small beep, repeating, over and over. Eli leaned forward. Computer, isolate that sound. The computer clicked and whirred. A blue light blinked. Signal detected. Origin. Unknown. Age. Over 300 years. Eli's eyes narrowed. 300 years. He tapped the console. That made no sense. Nothing that old should still be sending signals, especially not from this system, which was declared dead centuries ago. But the signal was clear. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a quiet, steady call from something ancient. Curious, Eli followed the source. He flew through clouds of frozen dust and past dead rocks until he saw it. A moon, covered in ice. Smooth, bright, perfectly round. And at the center of the ice, buried deep under the surface, was a shape, too clean, too perfect to be natural. A structure, Eli whispered. The signal was coming from it, from inside. He landed his ship gently. The ice cracked under the ship's heat. He stepped out, wearing his full explorer suit. The wind didn't blow. Nothing moved. It felt like time had stopped here. Eli used his tools to drill down. It took hours, but finally, he hit metal. He wiped the ice away. A dark, smooth surface stared back at him. Alien, cold, with symbols glowing faintly in blue. He placed his hand on it. The symbols lit up. The ice around him began to melt, not slowly, but all at once, as if heat had burst from inside the metal. Water flowed down the tunnel, fast. And then, something moved in the water. Eli froze. What was that? He whispered. He turned on his helmet lights. The water shimmered, clear. But for a moment, he saw a ripple, moving against the flow. Something was down there, and it was awake. The door opened with a loud hiss. Steam rose from the entrance. Eli stepped inside. The inside of the station was huge. Dark walls, long halls, machines that hadn't moved in centuries. But now, they were humming. Lights flickered on. The air was warm and damp. The water followed him inside, crawling along the walls like it was alive. He walked slowly. His heart beat faster. Every step echoed. The place felt dead and alive at the same time. He reached a large chamber with a glass floor. Below it, he saw more water. But this wasn't normal water. It pulsed, glowed faintly blue. And inside it, he saw shapes. Not human, not friendly. He tapped his recorder. This is Eli Vance. I've found an alien station, possibly from before human space travel. There is movement and something in the water. It's not natural. Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. Then, a voice. Not in words, not in any language, but he felt it. Inside his head. You should not be here. Eli spun around, weapon ready. Who's there? No answer, but the water beneath the floor glowed brighter. A face appeared. Alien, sharp, sad. Then it vanished. Eli backed away slowly. He found a small control room and sealed the door. His breathing was fast. He tried to calm down. But then, he heard something worse. Dripping. He looked up. The ceiling was leaking water, drop by drop, and each drop was moving upward, against gravity, toward the ceiling again. A loop, a cycle, as if the station was trying to wake itself up. He checked the signal again. It was still going. But now, there was a second signal, weaker, hidden behind the first. It sounded like a warning. He turned on translation software. It worked slowly, unsure of the language. Then it gave one line of text. "Do not open the vault." Eli stared at the words. What vault? And why was it sealed? The water around the room shimmered again. And for the first time, Eli wasn't sure if he had just discovered something or woken it up. Voices in the water. Eli didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in the control room of the alien station, helmet still on, hand on his blaster. The walls hummed gently around him, like something breathing. The water drops from the ceiling no longer dripped. They floated now, hovering, circling, glowing faintly blue in the dark. It was like the station was watching him. He replayed the message on his console again. Do not open the vault. But what vault? And why was a station buried under ice for 300 years still alive and talking? Eli stood up. He couldn't just sit there. Not while this place was changing around him. He stepped out into the hallway. The air was warmer now. Wet, heavy, like a jungle after rain. And then he heard it. A whisper. Not words, not sounds, just a feeling. Like someone was behind him, calling his name without a voice. He turned fast. No one was there. But the water was. It slid along the walls like a living thread. It twisted ahead of him, forming little waves, as if it wanted him to follow. Eli hesitated. He was a trained explorer. Curious. Brave. But this was different. Still, he followed. The water led him deeper into the station, past broken lights and strange doors. The walls had marks, alien symbols, glowing faint blue. And the whispers grew louder. He reached a room that looked untouched. Smooth metal floor, high ceiling. In the center floated a large sphere of water, completely suspended in the air. It didn't fall. It didn't move. It waited. Eli stepped closer. His suit's sensors beeped wildly. The water had no gravity, no temperature. It wasn't normal. It was something else. He reached out slowly and touched it with his glove. The room vanished. Suddenly, Eli was somewhere else. Not physically, but inside his mind. He stood in a massive alien city, towers rising into green skies. Strange creatures walked around, tall and elegant. Their skin shimmered like light through water. He felt their emotions. Pride, peace, fear. Then fire, screams, shadows falling from the sky. Weapons, death. He saw a queen, wearing glowing armor, standing before a great black door. She held up her hand and spoke, but Eli couldn't hear her voice. Only one thought reached him. Lock it away, no matter the cost. Then everything went black. Eli gasped and fell backward. He was back in the station, heart racing, breath heavy. What was that? He whispered. The floating water orb was gone. And on the wall behind it, a symbol now glowed brighter than the rest. It pulsed like a heartbeat. He touched it. A panel slid open, revealing a staircase leading down. Eli hesitated again. The whispering returned. Stronger now. It wasn't just noise. It was emotion. The station was afraid. He walked down the stairs. Slowly, the air grew colder. At the bottom, he found a wide hallway with more glowing water threads crawling along the walls. He passed rooms with strange machines. One had floating alien bones, held in place by invisible energy. Another had what looked like a garden, but everything inside was dead and twisted. And then he reached a round door. It was smooth, black, no handles. But in the center, there was a glowing handprint, human-shaped. Eli stared at it. Why would an alien station have a human handprint? He asked out loud. Then the water around the door moved. It twisted up like a snake and formed a face. Not human. The alien face from before. Its eyes stared into his soul. This time, it didn't speak in whispers. It spoke directly into his mind. You are not the first. Eli froze. What? A human came before. Long ago. He touched the vault. Eli's heart dropped. What happened to him? The water face flickered. He did not leave. Eli stepped back. His hands shook. Why me? He asked. The water replied, because you can hear us. And you still have a choice. Suddenly, the lights in the hallway shut off. The floor rumbled. Something deep below the station made a sound. A knock. Once. Twice. 3 times. Something was waking up. Eli ran back up the stairs. He reached the control room. Checked the console. The warning signal was now joined by another. New, stronger, and it had a translated message. 1 seal broken. 2 remain. Time is short. Eli looked through the station camera feeds. One by one, sections were powering on. Doors opening. Lights blinking. Something was coming online, and it wasn't friendly. But worst of all, he saw something moving in the water. Fast, shapeless, watching him. He turned to leave, but the door behind him was now sealed shut by rising water. Trapped. The walls pulsed. The whispers returned. But this time, they asked a question. Will you open the second door? Eli stared at the screen. Outside, the ice above the station had fully melted. The moon was changing. And deep below, the vault was not sealed anymore. The echo room. Eli could feel the walls of the station humming again, vibrating beneath his boots. Something was awakening. And it wasn't just the station itself. It was as if the very air around him was alive, waiting for him to make his next move. He stared at the sealed door, the one with the strange glowing handprint. His mind raced with the haunting whisper from the water. You are not the first. The face in the water, the alien voice, had told him that a human had been here before, long ago. But what had happened to him, and why had the vault been sealed? Eli shook his head. No time to think about that now. The water was rising again, growing stronger, faster. With a deep breath, Eli pressed his hand against the glowing print on the door. A low, deep rumble filled the room, and the door slid open with a hiss. The air was colder now, almost unbearably so. Eli stepped into the dark hallway beyond, the lights flickering weakly overhead. The walls around him were covered in dark, alien symbols, strange writing that seemed to move and shift the longer he stared at it. He was getting deeper into the station now. The hallway stretched out in front of him, its dark end hidden in shadows. And as he moved, the whispers grew louder, closer. But it wasn't just the sound of voices anymore. It was a feeling, like something was brushing against his mind. Don't go further. Don't touch the walls. The warning wasn't just coming from the station. It was coming from something else. Eli walked faster, his boots making soft clinking sounds on the floor as he moved. He wasn't sure if it was the station or the water calling to him, but he couldn't stop. His curiosity pushed him forward. The hallway ended at another door. This one was different, round, smooth, and made of clear glass. Inside it, Eli could see something floating, something alive. A mass of water, swirling, glowing faintly in the dark room. Eli stepped forward and touched the glass. The second he did, the water shifted. The light inside the room brightened, revealing shapes, figures, frozen in the swirling liquid. His heart skipped a beat. The figures were alien, tall, thin, with glowing skin. Some wore armor, while others held weapons. They were all frozen in time. Trapped in the water, their faces contorted in expressions of terror. The water's surface rippled as if it was responding to his touch, moving, changing. Eli pressed his face against the glass, his mind spinning. The symbols on the walls flickered again, lighting up one after another, like they were trying to tell him something. He reached for his recorder. Eli Vance, journal entry. I found what appears to be a museum, or some kind of archive. The water holds what looks like preserved alien soldiers. Their bodies are intact, but they're suspended inside the water, almost like they've been frozen. There's a terrible energy here. I can feel it. As he spoke, the whispers in his mind grew louder. The vault, a voice breathed. It is close. You are not ready. Eli jerked his head back, heart pounding in his chest. The voice was clearer now, stronger. It was coming from the water. Suddenly, the water in the chamber began to move, swirling around the frozen bodies, shifting like it was alive. A low hum filled the room, and the temperature dropped further. Eli felt a chill seep into his bones, and he backed away, but the water responded. It rose up from the floor, pressing against the glass, as if trying to reach him. The whispers turned into words. Not ready. You cannot open it. You do not understand what is inside. Eli stumbled backward, his pulse racing. No, I'm not opening anything. His voice was shaky. I'm just looking. I just need to understand. But the water didn't listen. It reached higher, forming shapes, faces, distorted, angry faces of the aliens who had once lived here. One face stood out. A woman. Her eyes were dark and hollow. She reached out, her hand stretched toward him. You are the key, she said, her voice like a whisper inside his mind. The door will open. It must. Only you can stop it. Eli felt his chest tighten. He could feel the weight of her words. They made no sense, but he knew one thing for sure. The station was alive, and it was trying to communicate with him. The glass before him cracked. A loud snap echoed through the room, and the glass broke into a million pieces, falling into the water. Eli was frozen in place as the water surged forward, forming into a massive whirlpool. It spun faster, pulling him toward it, almost as if the station itself was alive and had decided it wanted him. Suddenly, he was falling. The walls of the room began to bend, and he was pulled into the water, plunging into the depths. Everything around him turned dark. He felt the coldness of the water press in on him, but he couldn't breathe, couldn't move. It was like the water was choking him, holding him still. And then he heard something. A voice. Clear. Strong. We failed. The voice echoed in his mind, but it wasn't an alien voice. It was human. The water around him twisted, pulling him deeper into the unknown. And then, with a sudden rush, the pressure on him lifted. Eli was thrown back against the glass wall of the room. His lungs burned for air as he gasped, but he was alive. He blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The room had changed. The figures inside the water were gone. The glowing lights were dimming. And now there was only one thing left in the center of the room. A door. It wasn't there before. It was as if it had always been hidden, waiting for him. Eli stood, still gasping for air. The whispers faded, leaving only silence. The door was calling to him, but he knew one thing for sure. The station was no longer just a machine. It was something far more dangerous. It was alive, and it was playing a game with him. And the game was only just beginning. The Red Wake. Eli stood before the door, heart racing in his chest. The whispers that had followed him through the station had quieted for a moment, but the feeling of something watching him was stronger than ever. The alien station had transformed overnight. Once silent and cold, it was now alive. Alive with movement, with danger, with secrets. And now, in front of him, this new door seemed to promise something far worse than he was ready for. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the control panel. The water, the alive water, still slithered along the floor and walls, glowing faintly blue, moving as if it had its own purpose. It felt as though the station itself was pushing him forward, urging him to open the door. But what was behind it? He didn't know. Not really. But he couldn't go back now. He'd come too far. Eli pressed his hand against the cold metal. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and what he saw made his stomach twist in fear. Inside, the walls were covered in dark red liquid, like blood, but thicker, and it moved. It was as if the walls themselves were bleeding. The room was enormous, with high ceilings and the same dark, alien symbols glowing faintly in the dark. The air was thick with a strange smell, metal, decay, and something that made his skin crawl. And there, in the center of the room, stood a massive chamber, a kind of vault. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The door to the vault was dark, almost like a black hole. There were no symbols here, no signs, just emptiness. But as he moved closer, the water rose again, swirling in front of him like a barrier. It pressed against him, and for the first time, he felt fear from the station. Real fear. The whispers returned, louder now. "Do not enter. Do not open the vault." But Eli couldn't stop himself. His hand reached for the surface of the water. A vision flashed before his eyes. Not words, not sounds, just a feeling. Pain. Desperation. The last breath of something alive. The water around him froze. And then suddenly, the vault door began to open. Slowly, slowly, like it had been waiting for him. The room was quiet, but the tension was suffocating. Everything was watching him. He stepped inside. The vault was dark, cold, and still, but the walls were covered in strange carvings, symbols that glowed, pulsing faintly, like they were trying to tell him something. At the far end of the room, there was something, a shape, a figure. It was frozen in the center of the room, trapped in a large glass chamber. A being, alien, but humanoid, its body twisted and contorted as if caught in the act of fleeing. Its eyes were wide open in terror, its mouth frozen in a silent scream. Eli took a step closer, his pulse thundering in his ears. What was this? The figure wasn't alive. It couldn't be. But the way it was trapped, it was as if it had been preserved, but only to remind him of something. Something terrible. Suddenly, the air grew heavy. A low rumble started in the walls, shaking the ground beneath Eli's feet. The lights flickered again. And then, the water began to change. It wasn't blue anymore. It was red. The water rose up like an angry wave, pushing forward, forcing Eli to step back. His heart raced as the water splashed and curled around the room. It wasn't just moving. It was alive. It was alive. And it was angry. The figure inside the chamber, no, the creature, started to move. It twitched. Then it began to pound against the glass, the sound of its fists echoing in the silent room. Eli stumbled backward, falling against the cold wall. He gasped for air, his body shaking with fear. What was happening? The water surged faster, swirling around him, cutting off any escape. It moved like it had its own purpose, its own mind. Then, from the depths of the water, a voice echoed inside his mind. "We failed," it whispered. The creature's scream filled the air, growing louder, but it was no longer trapped. It was free. Eli watched in horror as the creature smashed through the glass of its prison. Its body twisted, its legs and arms flailing, as it moved faster than Eli thought possible. The water, it was helping it. It pushed the creature forward, allowing it to break free. And as it did, the air turned cold. The walls trembled. The ground cracked under Eli's feet. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the creature stopped. It stood in front of Eli, its eyes glowing, its body now towering over him. The creature was unlike anything Eli had ever seen. Its skin shimmered in the dim light, and its face was distorted, almost as if it was a reflection of something human, but warped. Its eyes were empty, lifeless. Eli's breath caught in his throat. He knew one thing. This was no accident. This creature had been waiting for him. It had called him here, and now it was free. The room went still, and then, in the same eerie voice from before, the creature spoke. "You have unlocked it. You have set us free. Now, you will pay the price." Eli staggered backward, his heart pounding. He looked around, but the water, now thick and red, seemed to be surrounding him. moving closer, closing in. The walls trembled again, and he could hear the station groaning beneath him. The creature reached out with long, sharp fingers. "You should have left when you had the chance," it hissed. Suddenly, a loud, explosive sound shook the room. The walls cracked, and part of the ceiling collapsed, causing a dust storm to swirl around them. Through the thick smoke, Eli could barely make out the creature's eyes, still glowing. It was coming for him. His mind raced. The vault, the creature, it was all connected. The creature's words, the warning from the water, they all led to this moment. And in that moment, Eli made a decision. He ran. Not alone. The walls of the station trembled beneath Eli's feet as he ran, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. The creature, that horrifying, alien thing, was still behind him. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, its distorted form moving faster than anything should. He heard its footsteps, sharp and heavy, echoing through the narrow corridors, closer and closer. Eli's breath came in ragged gasps as he raced through the halls of the station. His boots clanked against the cold, hard floor, the sound harsh in the eerie silence. He turned corners, ducked under broken pipes, and scrambled through narrow passages, his mind racing for an escape. But there was no way out. The station was alive, and every door he tried to open was either locked or sealed shut. The walls felt like they were closing in on him, as though the very station itself was hunting him, guiding the creature closer. "You should have left when you had the chance." The creature's voice echoed in his mind again, its words like ice scraping his thoughts. Eli's stomach twisted. He was running out of time. He reached a large chamber, its entrance blocked by what looked like a wall of water, flowing thick and dark, like oil. His mind raced. He had to get through, had to keep moving. Behind him, the footsteps were getting closer. The creature was right there, closing in. He darted forward, pushing against the slick, wet surface of the wall, trying to move through the water. But it was like trying to walk through quicksand. The water pulled at him, dragging him down, slowing his progress. He didn't know what it was or why it was there, but he knew one thing. He had to get through it. If he didn't, he was done. Suddenly, something pulled at his ankle. He spun around, blaster raised, but the only thing he saw was the water and the glowing eyes of the creature. The creature's form was looming now, its twisted shape fully visible in the dim light of the chamber. It wasn't just moving toward him, it was dragging itself, its limbs reaching out like a spider's legs, pulling it closer and closer with disturbing speed. "You woke me." The words came again, this time more urgent, more threatening. Eli took a step back, his legs trembling beneath him. But as he did, something strange happened. The water stopped pulling at him. A low, grinding sound filled the room. Then the water around him shifted, moving. It parted, and Eli saw something else, something that made his blood run cold. A shape, a figure, one that wasn't moving like the creature, but instead, it stood still, frozen in place. Eli's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the shape. It was a person, a human in a suit, much like his own. But this one was damaged, battered, as if it had been here for centuries. Eli's hand shot out toward the figure. He reached forward, almost instinctively. But as his fingers brushed the figure's shoulder, the water around it began to glow. "Don't touch it." The voice wasn't the creature's. It wasn't the whispers in his mind. This voice was clearer, stronger. It was coming from inside him. Eli pulled back his hand, staring at the figure in front of him. It wasn't just any human. It wasn't even a regular human explorer. No, this was someone who had been trapped here, just like him. The figure's face was frozen in a silent scream, a mask of terror that hadn't left its expression in a long, long time. Its eyes were wide open, glazed over with a cold, lifeless sheen. But as Eli looked closer, he saw something else. The figure was alive, or at least it had been, once. The The water around the figure started to move, forming a connection between it and the walls. The water wasn't just water. It was holding the body in place, preserving it. And in the water's reflection, Eli saw something even more chilling. The creature. The creature stopped moving. It was watching them both. "You were never alone." The voice echoed again, louder this time. "We never left." Eli's breath caught in his throat. He was no longer just running from the creature. He was now part of something much larger, something much older. The station, the water, had been waiting for him. Not just to open the vault or release the creature, but to connect him with everything that had happened here. The humans, the creatures, the alien technology, it was all linked. And now, the creature was waiting for him to make a choice. The voice wasn't just in his head anymore. It was in his very bones, in his blood. It had always been there. He looked back at the frozen figure. The human was a warning, a reminder. But what was the real danger? The creature? The water? Or was it the station itself, with its twisted, ancient consciousness? He turned, his mind racing. The water parted again, revealing the path ahead. The way to go deeper. The way to find out what had truly happened here. But as Eli stepped forward, a shudder ran through his body. "You're not ready," the voice warned again. He paused. But then he heard something else, a new sound, one that hadn't been there before. It was human. Someone was calling out. Someone was alive. Eli turned, his heart pounding. And there, at the far end of the chamber, he saw the source of the sound, a flicker of light. Another human, another explorer, staggering toward him, barely standing, but alive. Eli felt a surge of hope, but it was quickly crushed by the eerie realization. He was not alone, and neither was the station. The core below. Eli's heart still pounded from the shock of seeing the other human figure, but there was no time to think about that now. His mind raced, and his body was running on pure instinct. He couldn't stop. Not now. The figure, the one he had thought was another explorer, wasn't what it seemed. As soon as he reached out to help, the figure disappeared, vanished, like a ghost. The voice in his mind laughed, cold and echoing. "You cannot save them." But Eli refused to listen. The other humans, the ones who had been here before, were trapped, just like he was. He turned back toward the hallway, his blaster ready, his steps heavy on the floor as he moved deeper into the station. The water had begun to flow more rapidly now, twisting and swirling along the walls. Its unnatural movement sent a chill up his spine. It was alive, and it was waiting for him to follow. Eli knew he was reaching the heart of the station. The core, the thing that had kept it running for centuries. The thing that had brought him here. But now, as he descended deeper into the dark, his footsteps echoing louder, a new feeling washed over him. Dread. The tunnel grew narrower as he descended, the walls growing damp and cold. The air turned thick with a strange, almost metallic scent. Eli's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, but it barely illuminated the path ahead. The walls were covered with the same glowing alien symbols, but now they seemed to be moving, shifting like a language he couldn't understand. The deeper he went, the more he felt like something was watching him. The station's hum grew louder, almost a low mechanical growl, like a heartbeat. It was a sound that made his skin crawl. He reached the end of the tunnel, where a heavy metal door stood. This door was different. It was older, its edges frayed, its surface covered in long-forgotten markings. Eli hesitated. The whispers were back, stronger than before. "Do not open it." The voice was louder now, a warning. But Eli was beyond fear. He was past the point of no return. He pressed his hand against the door, and as he did, the markings on the metal began to glow. The door creaked open, revealing what lay beyond. A massive chamber stretched out before him, its walls smooth and dark, stretching high into the ceiling. The air was thick with energy, something that hummed in the very bones of the station. In the center of the chamber stood what could only be described as a core, a massive, pulsating sphere, glowing with an eerie blue light. Eli stepped forward, his boots echoing on the cold, metal floor. As he approached the core, he felt the ground beneath him tremble. The sphere was alive. He could feel it in his chest, like a pulse, a heartbeat. The walls around him began to shake more violently, and Eli stumbled. His heart raced as the sphere flickered, its light growing brighter. The whispers turned into a voice again, louder, sharper. "It is time." Eli's stomach churned. He didn't understand. What was happening? Why was the station alive like this? The creature, the water, the humans before him, they were all connected to this place, to this core. And now, the core was waking up. Suddenly, the room shifted. The floor cracked open in front of him, and a dark mist poured out from below, swirling around the core like a living thing. The room began to shake violently, throwing Eli off balance. He stumbled, his hands grabbing the walls to steady himself. "You must wake it," the voice said, but this time, it wasn't just in his mind. It was real. It was coming from the core. Eli felt his pulse quicken. He didn't want to wake it. He wanted to shut it down, escape. But the core was calling to him, drawing him in, pulling at something deep inside him. The core hummed louder, and the air thickened with energy. Eli had no choice. He reached out, his hand trembling as it neared the core's surface. Before he could touch it, the floor split open beneath him, and he fell into the darkness below. He landed hard on the cold ground, gasping for air. His vision swam as he tried to stand, pain shooting through his body. He looked around, his flashlight flickering, casting strange shadows on the walls. This place, this lower level, was nothing like what he had seen before. The walls were covered in alien carvings, etched into the metal with strange, arcane symbols. The floor beneath him was jagged and uneven, as if the station had been shattered and pieced back together. A loud mechanical whine echoed through the chamber, and Eli's gaze shifted toward the center of the room. There, at the heart of it all, was a massive device. It was glowing with the same eerie blue light as the core above. It was pulsing, as if it was breathing, alive in the same way the core was. But now, the creature was silent. The water was still. The whispers faded. And then, without warning, the voice returned. "It is time to choose." Eli froze. He couldn't move. He was stuck in this place, trapped. And as he looked around, he realized the truth. This place wasn't just a station. It wasn't a trap. It was a prison. A prison built to hold something ancient, something far more dangerous than any of them could understand. And he had released it. The core, the creature, the station itself, they were all linked. And now, Eli had to make a choice. There was no going back. The ancient being that had been sealed away here was now awake, and it was coming for him. The walls shuddered. The core's light grew brighter, almost blinding now. And then, everything went dark. One human left. Eli's body ached from the fall. His head spun as he tried to get his bearings. He couldn't understand what was happening, how this station, this place, had gone from silent and cold to alive and deadly. His breath came in sharp gasps as he slowly sat up, his eyes darting around the dark chamber. The air felt thick with energy, vibrating around him. He had no time to rest. The core was still pulsing, growing stronger, its blue glow casting long shadows across the walls. The walls themselves seemed to move, as if the station had grown aware of his presence. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was alive. And now, it was waiting for him. The whispers filled his mind once again, sharper and more urgent this time. "You are the last." He shook his head, fighting the panic that rose in his chest. "No, I'm not the last. There must be others. There must be a way out." But the whispers didn't stop. "There are no others. Only you." The door is closing. Eli's gaze shot up toward the ceiling. The walls had already started shifting, sealing off the paths he had come through. The exit was vanishing. The station wasn't just trapping him, it was locking him in. He looked at the device in the center of the room, the thing that had pulled him down. The blue light flickered with an intense rhythm, and it felt like the heartbeat of the station, pumping life into everything around him. And then he saw it, a figure. At first, he thought it was just another shadow, but no, it was moving, floating, not walking, gliding toward him. He stepped back, eyes wide, his hand instinctively reaching for his blaster. But his hand shook, his legs wobbled. The figure was human, or at least it looked human. But the thing floating toward him wasn't like anything he had seen before. It was changed. Its body was pale and stretched, like it had been here for centuries, its skin almost translucent. Its eyes were wide, unblinking, empty. The face was both human and alien, distorted in a way that made Eli's stomach twist. "You found us," the figure whispered, its voice barely more than a breath. "And you woke it." Eli didn't know what to say. He couldn't. The figure had a deep, hollow voice. It sounded like the last breath of a dying person. The figure reached out toward him, and the room seemed to pulse with energy. "This is it, Eli. This is the end." Eli's mind raced. This wasn't just a creature. This was human. Someone who had been trapped here long ago, just like him. Someone who had failed. And now they were, what? Transformed. Part of the station. Part of the core. "You still don't understand, do you?" The figure continued, its voice barely audible. "We are the last. There is no escape. The station will only ever choose one." Eli took a step back, his mind struggling to keep up. He hadn't come all this way just to fail. He couldn't let this happen. He thought of the other humans, of the ones who had been here before, lost to the station, their frozen forms in the water, the disembodied faces he had seen. They had all tried to escape, but they never did. "The station is the prison," the figure said, its voice gaining strength. "The core keeps us here, and it will keep you here too. You cannot stop it. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. The station chooses, and the choice is already made." Suddenly, Eli's vision blurred. The walls around him seemed to collapse into a swirling darkness. He could feel the station's energy, its presence, closing in on him. His breath came faster. His mind screamed at him to fight, but his body felt heavy. The whispers in his head grew louder, deafening. He could feel the weight of their guilt, their failure. He could feel himself slipping into the same trap they had fallen into. And then, just as everything seemed lost, Eli heard something else. A voice, a different voice. It was the real voice. A human voice. "Eli." He jerked his head up, eyes wide. In front of him, the figure had stopped moving. And now he saw it, a crack in the air, a shimmering light, almost as if the very fabric of the station had broken. From the crack, a figure stepped forward. It was another human. "You're not alone." Eli's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, tall, with dark hair and a look of calm determination on her face. She wasn't like the figure before. She looked real, alive, human. How are you here?" Eli asked, his voice shaky. The woman smiled faintly. "I've been waiting, just like you. You're not the only one who found the station. You're just the one who woke it." Eli's heart raced. She was real, not like the others, not like the distorted figure. She took a step toward him. "You have a choice, Eli, a choice none of the others had." The figure, the ghostly one, started to move again, but this time it didn't speak. It just watched. The woman reached out to Eli. Her hand was warm, alive. "The station will choose," she whispered. "But you don't have to choose it. You can make the choice. The core will still be alive, but you can stop it. You can end it, for good. Eli felt his chest tighten. He understood now. The core wasn't just a machine. It was something far worse. It was a prison. A living, breathing prison that had held these humans for centuries. And it wasn't just the humans who had been trapped. It was the entire station. And the creature. But the choice was his. He could destroy it all. He looked at the woman. He looked at the figure. And then he made his decision. With trembling hands, he reached for the core. The station began to shake. The ground beneath Eli's feet cracked.